The cold bit through my thin coat like 1,000 needles, each gust of wind stealing another fragment of warmth from my trembling body. I stood at the iron gates of the Ashford estate, the mansion looming behind me like a monument to everything I'd lost in the span of 15 minutes. My fingers clutched the small canvas bag containing everything I owned. 2 changes of clothes, a photograph of my grandmother, and the silver locket she'd given me before she died. "Don't come back." Helena Ashford's words still echoed in my ears, each syllable sharp as broken glass. "You're nothing but a thief and a liar." The accusation burned worse than the December wind. I hadn't stolen anything. The missing diamond bracelet had been exactly where Helena always left it, in the powder room after her afternoon cocktails. But when Elif found it there an hour later, Helena decided the convenient narrative was that I'd taken it, and then replaced it when I realized I'd been caught. No defense mattered. No truth penetrated the armor of her cruelty. I started walking down the long drive, my inadequate shoes crunching on gravel that would soon be buried under snow. The sky hung low and gray, pregnant with the storm the radio had been warning about all week. Christmas Eve, and I had nowhere to go. The boarding house where I'd been renting a room had closed last month, and my meager savings had been spent on my grandmother's funeral in October. The highway stretched before me, empty and indifferent. In the distance, the lights of the town twinkled like stars fallen to earth. But they were 4 miles away. My coat was meant for autumn, not the brutal cold that was descending with the approaching night. Already I could feel my fingers going numb, my face stinging with the bite of wind that tasted of coming snow. I should have asked Ahmet for help. The old Turkish butler had always been kind to me, slipping me extra food when Helena wasn't looking, teaching me how to properly fold the napkins she demanded at dinner parties. But he had a wife, children, grandchildren. I wouldn't drag him into Helena's vindictiveness. The first snowflakes began to fall as I reached the main road. They drifted down in lazy spirals, deceptively beautiful, each one a small threat. I pulled my coat tighter and kept walking, my breath forming white clouds that dissipated into the gathering darkness. My grandmother used to say that God never gives you more than you can handle. As my feet grew heavier and the snow began to fall faster, I wondered if she'd been wrong. I was 22 years old, alone in the world, walking into a blizzard with nowhere to go and no one to call. The headlights appeared behind me like twin moons, bright and otherworldly in the swirling snow. I moved to the shoulder, expecting the car to pass, but instead, it slowed. The vehicle was sleek and black, expensive in a way that made Helena's luxury sedan look pedestrian. It pulled alongside me and stopped. The passenger window descended with a soft mechanical whisper. Warm air spilled out, carrying the scent of leather and something else, sandalwood and amber, masculine and rich. The man inside was partially obscured by shadow, but I could see the sharp line of his jaw, the intensity of his gaze as it fixed on me. "You'll freeze to death out here." His voice was deep, accented with something Mediterranean. Italian, perhaps. Not a question, just a statement of fact. I should have been afraid. A lone man in an expensive car stopping for a woman walking alone at night. Every warning I'd ever received screamed danger. But something in his voice, in the straightforward assessment of my situation, made me pause. "I'm fine," I said, my voice barely audible over the wind. "The town isn't far. It's 4 miles." He leaned toward the window, and I caught a glimpse of dark eyes, a white shirt with the top buttons undone revealing the hollow of his throat. "In this storm, you won't make it halfway." As if to punctuate his words, the wind gusted harder, driving snow into my face. I stumbled, my numb feet betraying me. Strong hands caught me before I fell. He'd moved with startling speed, appearing beside me without my hearing the car door open. "Easy." His grip was firm but gentle, steadying me. Up close, I could see him properly. Mid-30s, with the kind of face that belonged on Roman statues, all angles and aristocratic bones. His dark hair was slightly longer than fashionable, touching the collar of his expensive coat. But it was his eyes that held me, storm gray, intense, missing nothing. "When did you last eat?" "This morning." The admission came automatically, stripped of pride by cold and exhaustion. He made a sound low in his throat, something between disapproval and decision. "Get in the car." "I don't even know you." "Luca." He said it simply, as though his name should mean something. Perhaps it did, in certain circles, but not in mine. "And you're Aurora. I heard your employer screaming your name while you gathered your things." My eyes widened. "You were at the estate?" "Business with Helena Ashford." Something dark crossed his face. "Brief and unsatisfactory business. Now, Aurora, you can get in the car willingly, or I can put you in it. Either way, you're not walking into this storm." The commanding tone should have frightened me, should have made me refuse on principle. But my body was already betraying me, swaying toward the warmth spilling from the open car door. My fingers had gone from numb to burning, the first sign of frostbite. "Where are you taking me?" I asked, my voice small. "Somewhere warm, somewhere safe." He guided me toward the car with a hand at the small of my back. "We'll sort out the rest after you're not in danger of losing fingers to the cold." I let him help me into the passenger seat, too exhausted to fight. The interior was warm as summer, the leather soft beneath me. As he closed my door and circled to the driver's side, I caught my reflection in the side mirror. Face pale, lips tinged blue, eyes too large in my pinched features. I looked like a ghost, already halfway to the death he'd predicted. Luca slid behind the wheel with fluid grace, and the car moved forward smoothly, powerful engine purring beneath us. He turned the heat higher, directing the vents toward me. "There's a blanket behind you," he said, his eyes on the road as the snow began to fall in earnest. "Wrap yourself." I reached back with clumsy fingers and found soft cashmere. The blanket settled around my shoulders like an embrace, and I couldn't suppress a small sound of relief as warmth began to penetrate my frozen limbs. "Why were you walking?" he asked after a moment. "Why not call someone?" "There's no one to call." The truth sat heavy in my chest, and Helena wouldn't let me use the phone. His jaw tightened. "She threw you out? Today? In this weather?" I nodded, not trusting my voice. "For what crime?" "She said I stole her bracelet. I didn't." I looked out at the snow-obscured road. "But it doesn't matter what I say. Helena Ashford doesn't like to be contradicted." "No." His voice carried a note of steel. "She doesn't." We drove in silence for several minutes, the windshield wipers fighting a losing battle against the accumulating snow. I realized we weren't heading toward town but away from it, into the hills where only the wealthy built their estates. "Where are we going?" I asked, a flutter of belated fear stirring in my chest. "My home." He glanced at me, something almost amused in his expression. "Before you panic, I have staff. A housekeeper, security, a doctor if needed. You'll have your own room, your own space. But I'm not leaving you at some motel in town to freeze because you're too proud to accept help. I don't even know you." "Then ask." He turned onto a private road, the gates swinging open automatically. "What would you like to know? Who are you, really?" His smile was slight, edged with something dangerous. "That's a complicated question, Aurora. But the simple answer is that I'm someone who doesn't leave young women to freeze to death on Christmas Eve." He paused. "Even ones who look at me like they're trying to decide if I'm more dangerous than the storm. Are you?" The question escaped before I could stop it. He was quiet for a long moment, his attention on the curving drive ahead. Finally, he said, To my enemies? Yes. To someone who's done me no wrong? He glanced at me, and I saw something unexpected in his eyes. Sincerity. You'll be safe with me, Aurora. I give you my word. I should have been more afraid. Should have demanded he take me to town, to the police station, anywhere but his isolated estate. But something in the calm certainty of his voice, in the careful way he'd helped me into the car, in the genuine anger I'd heard when he learned Helena had thrown me out in a storm, made me nod. Okay. The mansion that emerged from the snow was nothing like Helena's ostentatious display of wealth. This was older, more elegant, built of stone that had weathered centuries. Warm light spilled from tall windows, and as we pulled under a covered portico, I saw a man emerge, broad-shouldered, watchful, his hand resting casually near his waist in a way that suggested a concealed weapon. Osman, Lucas said as he opened my door. Call Dr. Sahin. Tell him to come immediately. I don't need a doctor, I protested weakly, but my voice was slurred, exhaustion and cold finally overtaking me. Your lips are blue and you can't feel your feet. Luca lifted me from the car with surprising ease, blanket and all. You need warmth, food, and medical attention. I should have argued, should have maintained some dignity. But my head was spinning, and the warmth radiating from his body where he held me was too tempting to resist. I let my head rest against his shoulder as he carried me through ornate doors into a foyer that seemed to stretch upward forever. The Rose Room, he instructed someone I couldn't see. Fire built up, hot bath drawn, warm clothes prepared. His footsteps echoed on marble floors, then muffled on carpet. Upstairs, down a hall, into a room that glowed with firelight. He set me carefully on a chair near the hearth, keeping the blanket tucked around me. Aurora. His voice was gentle, drawing my wandering attention back to his face. Stay awake a little longer, just until the doctor arrives. Why are you being so kind? I whispered, confusion and gratitude warring in my chest. You don't know me. He crouched before me, bringing his eyes level with mine. Up close, I could see the fine lines at their corners, the small scar along his jaw, the intensity that seemed to simmer beneath his controlled exterior. Because someone should be, he said simply, and because I recognize the look in your eyes, the one that says you've been knocked down but refuse to stay there. Something flickered in his gaze. That kind of courage deserves to be protected, not punished. Before I could respond, a woman bustled in carrying an armful of clothes, followed by a distinguished-looking man with a medical bag. Dr. Sahin. Luca stood, but his hand remained on my shoulder, a steadying presence. Thank you for coming. Of course. The doctor knelt where Luca had been, his experienced gaze assessing me. Let's see how badly the cold has hurt you, young lady. Luca stepped back, but didn't leave. He stood by the window, looking out at the storm, but I could feel his attention on me as the doctor began his examination. The housekeeper helped me out of my wet coat, revealing the thin uniform dress beneath. Helena had never provided proper clothing for outdoor work. Mild hypothermia, doctor, Sahin announced after several minutes. Early frostbite on the fingers and toes, but nothing that won't heal with proper care. He looked up at Luca. You found her just in time. Will she be all right? There was something in Luca's voice, an edge of concern that seemed excessive for a stranger he'd picked up on the road. With rest, warmth, and nutrition, yes. Dr. Sand stood, turning to the housekeeper. Keep her warm but not too hot. Gradual temperature increase. Warm liquids, light food. I'll return tomorrow to check on her. After they'd gone, Luca moved back to my chair. Can you stand? I think so. With his help, I rose on unsteady legs. The bathroom is through there. He gestured to a door. Hot bath already drawn. Take your time. Let yourself warm up properly. There are clothes laid out, and food will be brought up shortly. Luca. I caught his arm as he turned to leave, feeling the corded muscle beneath the expensive fabric. Thank you. For stopping. For helping me. I don't know what would have happened if you hadn't. His hand covered mine where it rested on his arm. You would have survived, Aurora. Women like you always do. You find a way. His thumb brushed across my frozen knuckles, but I'm glad I was there so you didn't have to find out how. He left, closing the door softly behind him. I stood alone in the beautiful room, listening to the storm howl outside and the fire crackle in the hearth, trying to understand what had just happened. A stranger had saved my life. A dangerous stranger, if the security and the way people moved around him were any indication. But also a kind one, who'd looked at me like I mattered. I moved toward the bathroom, toward the steam rising from the bathtub, toward warmth and safety. Tomorrow I would ask questions. Tonight, I would simply be grateful to be alive. The hot water stung my frozen skin, a sensation caught somewhere between pain and pleasure. I sank into the enormous bathtub slowly, letting my body adjust to the warmth. The bathroom was larger than the room I'd shared with 2 other maids at the boarding house, all marble and gold fixtures, with a window that overlooked snow-covered gardens barely visible through the storm. I stayed in the bath until my fingers pruned and the water cooled, then dried off with towels softer than anything I'd ever touched. The clothes laid out were simple but expensive. Gray wool pants, a cream cashmere sweater, thick socks. Everything fit perfectly, which should have been strange, but somehow wasn't. Luca seemed like the kind of man who noticed details, who planned for contingencies. I'd barely finished dressing when a soft knock sounded at the door. A young woman entered carrying a tray, her dark eyes curious but not unkind. Mr. Marchetti said you'd be hungry, she said, setting the tray on a small table near the fire. I'm Aylin. If you need anything, there's a bell pull by the bed. Thank you. I moved to the table, my stomach growling at the sight of soup, bread, and what looked like herb-roasted chicken. Aylin, how long have you worked here? 2 years, she smiled. Mr. Marchetti is a good employer, fair, generous. She paused, and protective of those who work for him. The emphasis on the last word felt deliberate, a message. I nodded, understanding passing between us. 2 women who knew what it meant to be vulnerable in the service of powerful people. After she left, I ate slowly, savoring each bite. The soup was rich with vegetables and tender meat, the bread still warm from the oven. As feeling returned to my fingers and toes, bringing pins and needles with it, I let myself process what had happened. Helena had thrown me out to die. That truth sat cold and hard in my chest. She'd known about the storm, had seen my inadequate clothing, and hadn't cared. If Luca hadn't found me, I wouldn't think about that. Dr. Sahin had said I would heal. I would survive this, just as I'd survived losing my grandmother, losing my childhood home, losing every safe place I'd ever known. A stronger knock interrupted my thoughts. Aurora? Luca's voice, deep and controlled. May I come in? Yes. He entered carrying what looked like medical supplies, bandages, ointment, the materials Dr. Sahin had left. He'd changed too, now wearing dark pants and a charcoal sweater that emphasized the breadth of his shoulders. With his hair slightly disheveled and the formal barrier of his coat removed, he looked younger, more approachable. Still dangerous, but in a way that drew rather than repelled. Dr. Sahin left instructions for your hands and feet. He gestured to the chair opposite mine. May I? I nodded, extending my hands. He sat, handling my fingers with surprising gentleness as he examined the reddened skin. His touch was clinical, but somehow intimate, his attention focused entirely on the task. Up close, I could see the fine stubble along his jaw, smell the clean scent of soap and that underlying note of sandalwood. "This will sting," he warned before applying the ointment. He was right. I flinched but didn't pull away, watching his face as he worked. There was concentration there, care, a kind of controlled intensity that suggested he approached everything with the same thoroughness. "You said you had business with Helena," I said, needing to fill the charged silence. "What kind of business?" His mouth tightened. The kind that revealed her character more clearly than I'd expected. He began wrapping my fingers in soft bandages. "She's careless with people, Aurora. Treats them as disposable." I noticed. "How long did you work for her?" 6 months, since my grandmother died and I lost our house." I watched him work, mesmerized by the competence of his hands. I needed income, and Helena paid better than most, though now I understand why. It's hard to keep staff when you treat them like dirt. "What happened with the bracelet?" I explained, watching his expression darken as I described how Helena had orchestrated the whole scenario. When I finished, he was quiet for a long moment, his hands still on mine though the bandaging was complete. "Helena Ashford," he said finally, his voice carrying an edge I hadn't heard before, "is about to learn that cruelty has consequences." Something in his tone made me shiver, not with cold, but with the sudden understanding that I was sitting with a man who commanded real power. Not the social power Helena wielded, but something deeper and more dangerous. "What are you going to do?" I asked carefully. "Nothing that need concern you." He released my hands and moved to my feet, beginning the same careful process. "But she won't hurt anyone else the way she hurt you." "Luca." I leaned forward, catching his attention. "I appreciate what you did for me tonight. Truly. But I don't want to be the cause of trouble between you and... You're not the cause." His eyes met mine, storm gray and absolute. "Helena is. She's been operating unchecked for too long, and tonight she revealed herself in a way that can't be ignored." He finished wrapping my left foot. "Rest assured, whatever happens between Helena Ashford and myself has nothing to do with you, and everything to do with her own actions." The finality in his voice suggested the topic was closed. I let it drop, watching the firelight play across his features as he completed his task. There was something compelling about him, this stranger who'd saved me, something that made me want to understand what lay beneath his controlled exterior. "Aylin said you're protective of your employees," I ventured. A slight smile. "Aylin talks too much. She also said you're fair, generous. I treat people the way they deserve to be treated." He stood, gathering the medical supplies. "Those who are loyal and hard-working receive loyalty and support in return. Those who betray trust." He didn't finish, but the implication hung in the air. "And me?" I asked, surprised by my own boldness. "How do I fit into your world, Luca Marchetti?" He paused at the door, looking back at me. In the firelight, his face was all shadows and angles, beautiful and slightly terrifying. "You don't fit," he said quietly. "Not yet. But you will, Aurora. Because I've decided you're going to stay." Before I could protest, he continued. "Not as charity, not as a debt to be repaid, but because you need time to heal and figure out your next step, and I have resources to offer without missing them." His expression softened slightly. "And because something tells me you're too stubborn to accept help without earning it, so we'll find you work here. Something suited to your skills." "You don't know what my skills are." "Then tell me. What did you do before you worked for Helena?" "I was studying business administration, part-time, at the community college." The admission felt like revealing a wound. "I had to drop out when my grandmother got sick," The medical bills. Finished the sentence with debt and desperation. He nodded, understanding in his eyes. I have several legitimate businesses, imports, real estate, restaurants. All of them need administrative support. He leaned against the doorframe, relaxed, but somehow coiled. Stay through the holidays. Rest, heal. After Christmas, we'll discuss your skills and find you a position that pays fairly and treats you with dignity. It was too much. Too generous. Too perfect to be real. Why? The question burst out before I could stop it. Why are you doing this for a complete stranger? He was quiet for so long I thought he wouldn't answer. When he finally spoke, his voice carried something I couldn't quite identify. Memory, perhaps, or old pain. Because 5 years ago, someone threw my younger sister out into the cold. She was 17, pregnant, ashamed. His jaw tightened. She didn't survive the night. If someone had stopped, had offered help the way I'm offering you. He met my eyes. Maybe she would have lived. The grief in his voice was old, but not healed. A wound that had scarred, but still ached. I understood then. This wasn't about me at all. It was about the sister he couldn't save, the help that had come too late, or not at all. I'm sorry, I said softly. So am I. He straightened, the vulnerable moment passing as control reasserted itself. Get some rest, Aurora. Tomorrow is Christmas. We'll talk more then. He left, closing the door with a soft click. I sat staring into the fire, trying to process everything that had happened. This morning I'd woken in Helena's mansion, secure in my employment if not my happiness. Tonight I was in a stranger's home, offered sanctuary and employment by a man who carried his own ghosts. I should have been more wary, should have questioned his motives more thoroughly. But exhaustion was pulling at me, and the bed looked impossibly inviting. I crawled between sheets that smelled of lavender and let myself sink into the first real safety I'd felt in months. Sleep came quickly, but it was restless. I dreamed of snow and cold, of Helena's cruel smile, of hands reaching for me in the darkness. Then the dream shifted, and those hands were gentle, lifting me, carrying me toward warmth and light. A deep voice promised safety, and for the first time in months, I believed it. I woke to pale morning light filtering through gauzy curtains. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was. Then memory flooded back, the storm, the cold, Luca's unexpected rescue. I sat up slowly, testing my body. My fingers and toes still ached, but the sharp pain of frostbite had faded to a dull throb. On the table beside the bed, someone had left a breakfast tray. Fresh fruit, yogurt, pastries still warm from the oven. There was also a note in bold, masculine handwriting. Take your time. No rush. L. I ate slowly, watching snow fall gently beyond the window. The storm had passed, leaving the world transformed. Everything was white and pristine, beautiful in a way that made last night's terror seem impossible. A soft knock preceded Aylin's entrance. Mr. Marchetti asked me to see if you needed anything, she said, her smile warm. And to tell you that Christmas lunch will be served at 1, if you feel well enough to join him. Nah, I feel much better, I assured her. But I don't have anything appropriate to wear. Already thought of. She moved to the wardrobe and opened it, revealing several dresses I hadn't noticed the night before. Mr. Marchetti had these brought in this morning. He said to choose whatever makes you comfortable. I stared at the array of clothes, casual, elegant, in colors that would suit my coloring. Either Luca Marchetti was incredibly observant, or he had resources that made such things easy. Probably both. I chose a deep emerald dress, simple but well made, with sleeves that covered the bandages on my hands. Aylin helped me with my hair, pulling it back in a style that was elegant, but not too formal. When I looked in the mirror, I barely recognized myself. The pale, frightened girl from last night had been replaced by someone who looked almost worthy of sitting at Luca Marchetti's table. Aylin led me through the house, and I paid more attention to my surroundings than I had the night before. The mansion was old wealth, not nouveau riche ostentation. Art that looked museum quality hung on the walls. The furniture was antique but comfortable. Everything spoke of taste and restraint and power that didn't need to announce itself. We descended the curved staircase to the ground floor, where Aylin gestured to a set of double doors. "Mr. Marchetti is in the dining room. Merry Christmas, Aurora." "Merry Christmas," I echoed, surprised that I'd forgotten what day it was. I pushed open the doors and stopped. The dining room was elegant but warm, with a fire crackling in an ornate hearth and a table set for two. Luca stood by the window, looking out at the snow-covered grounds. He'd dressed for the occasion in dark slacks and a dove-gray shirt, the top 3 buttons open in that casual way that somehow made him look more sophisticated rather than less. He turned as I entered, and something shifted in his expression. Appreciation, quickly controlled. "Aurora." He moved forward, gesturing to the table. "You look well. Much better than last night." "Thanks to you." I accepted the chair he held out. "I owe you my life." "You owe me nothing." He took the seat across from mine. "But I'm glad you're recovering." Staff appeared with food: roasted turkey, winter vegetables, fresh bread. Christmas dinner, even though it was only lunch. The meal was delicious, and as we ate, we talked. Not about Helena or the storm or the dangerous undercurrents I sensed in Luca's world, but about small things. Books we'd read, places we'd seen, dreams we'd harbored. I found myself relaxing despite my better judgment. Luca was easy to talk to when he dropped his guard, his intelligence evident in every conversation. He listened more than he spoke, asking questions that showed genuine interest in my answers. "You said you studied business administration," he said over dessert, a decadent chocolate cake that made me close my eyes in appreciation. "What aspect interests you most?" "Organization, systems." I set down my fork. "I love taking chaos and finding the patterns, creating structures that make everything run smoothly." "And Helena Ashford had you cleaning floors." "She didn't ask about my education, just put me in a uniform and pointed at the work." His expression darkened. "A waste of potential." "It was a job. It paid." "Barely, I imagine." He leaned back, studying me with those penetrating eyes. "Tomorrow, I want you to look at my restaurant operations. 3 locations in the city, and the administrative side is a disaster. If you can bring order to that chaos, the position is yours, with a salary that reflects your actual value." I stared at him. "You're serious?" "I never joke about business, Aurora." A slight smile. "Or about people who interest me." The last words hung in the air between us, loaded with meaning I wasn't ready to examine. Before I could respond, Osman appeared in the doorway. "Boss." His voice was respectful, but urgent. "There's a situation that requires your attention." Luca's demeanor changed instantly, the relaxed man across from me vanishing, replaced by someone harder, more dangerous. "Excuse me," he said to me, already rising. "This won't take long." I watched him leave with Osman, their voices dropping to low murmurs as they moved down the hall. Alone in the dining room, I let myself process what was happening. Luca Marchetti was offering me work, offering me a fresh start. But he was also clearly involved in things that went beyond legitimate business, things that brought men like Osman, security, enforcer, whatever he was, to interrupt Christmas dinner. I should have been more afraid, should have been planning how to politely decline and find my own way. But as I sat in that beautiful room, warm and safe and full of good food for the first time in months, all I could think was that I wanted to stay. Wanted to discover what it meant to work for a man who looked at me like I mattered, who saw potential where Helena had seen only a servant. Whatever Luca Marchetti was, and I suspected the truth was more complicated than I wanted to know. He had saved my life, and now he was offering me a chance to rebuild it. I would be a fool to refuse. The days after Christmas passed in a strange, suspended reality. I remained in the Rose Room, healing under Dr. Sign's watchful care, while snow continued to blanket the world outside. Luca kept his distance, appearing only for meals or brief check-ins, always proper, always controlled. But I felt his presence throughout the house, in the books that appeared on my nightstand matching topics we'd discussed, in the care taken with my comfort, in the way staff spoke his name with genuine respect rather than fear. On the third day, when Dr. Sahin finally removed the bandages from my hands and pronounced me recovered, Luca invited me to his study. The room was exactly what I'd expected: floor-to-ceiling bookshelves, a massive desk of dark wood, leather chairs positioned before a fireplace. But what drew my attention was the wall of photographs near the window. Luca, with an older couple who had to be his parents. Luca with a beautiful young woman whose features echoed his own, the sister he'd mentioned, frozen forever at 17 with her whole life ahead of her. Isabella. His voice came from behind me. I hadn't heard him enter. She would have been 22 now, your age. She's beautiful. I studied the photograph, seeing the joy in her expression, the trust. What happened? The man who got her pregnant was married, powerful. When she told him about the baby, he gave her money and told her to take care of it. His voice was flat, emotionless, which somehow made it worse. She refused. She wanted to keep the child, raise it with or without his help. So he had his people drive her to the outskirts of town and leave her there, in February, during a blizzard. My hand went to my throat. Oh God. They found her 3 days later. She'd made it almost a mile before hypothermia took her. He moved to stand beside me, his gaze on his sister's face. The baby died with her. Did they catch him? The man responsible? The official investigation found no evidence of foul play, just a tragic accident, a confused young woman making poor choices. His mouth twisted. Money bought silence, bought witnesses, bought the truth itself. But you knew the truth. I knew. He turned to face me fully. And 6 months later, the man responsible lost everything. His businesses collapsed, his reputation destroyed. His marriage ended when his affairs became public knowledge. He disappeared shortly after, fled the country before his creditors could catch him. Something cold moved behind his eyes. Isabella's death was avenged, even if justice never came through official channels. The implication was clear. Luca had orchestrated the man's downfall, had used his resources and connections to destroy the person who'd killed his sister. It should have frightened me. Instead, I felt a strange kinship. This was a man who protected those he cared for, who ensured that cruelty was punished, even when the law failed. Is that what you're going to do to Helena? I asked quietly. Helena Ashford's crimes run deeper than casual cruelty to her staff. He moved to his desk, opening a folder. While you've been recovering, I've been investigating. Would you like to know what I found? I nodded, suddenly cold despite the fire's warmth. Helena has been running a sophisticated scheme for years. She hires vulnerable women, immigrants, those without family connections, women like you who have nowhere else to turn. She pays them well initially, gains their trust. He handed me a document. Then she uses them to launder money through fake expense accounts, forged invoices, transactions they know nothing about. When the amounts get large enough to risk detection, she accuses them of theft and throws them out without references. I stared at the paper, seeing names of other women who'd worked for Helena, seeing patterns that made my stomach turn. The bracelet. Was likely planted where you'd find it, yes. She needed you gone before her accountants completed their quarterly review. If they'd found the discrepancies while you were still employed, you would have been the perfect scapegoat. His expression was grim. She's done this 8 times in the past 5 years. 2 of those women committed suicide after being accused of crimes they didn't commit. 3 others ended up in legal trouble when Helena's paper trail led back to them. And the authorities know about this? Some do. Many are paid to look the other way. He closed the folder. Helena Ashford has powerful friends, Aurora. Friends who benefit from her services. Then what can you do? If she's that protected? Protection works both ways. It can be withdrawn as easily as it's granted. He leaned against his desk, arms crossed. I have connections too. Different ones. And I have something Helena doesn't. Patience. I don't need to destroy her tomorrow. I can wait, build a case so airtight that even her friends can't save her. How long? I asked. Months, maybe. A year at most. He studied me carefully. I'm telling you this because you deserve to know, and because I want you to understand that when I offer you work, it comes with protection. Anyone who tries to harm you, to use you the way Helena did, will answer to me. The possessiveness in his words should have alarmed me. Instead, I felt something warm unfurl in my chest. Safety, yes, but also something more complicated. Something that recognized the darkness in Luca Marchetti and wasn't afraid of it because it was aimed away from me, toward those who would hurt the vulnerable. Show me the restaurant accounts, I said. Let me prove I can do the work you're offering. Something like approval flashed in his eyes. This way. He led me to a smaller office down the hall, where 3 computers were set up on a long desk. Each location has separate books, but they all feed into a central system. Or they're supposed to. Right now it's chaos. Invoices lost, payroll discrepancies, inventory that doesn't match orders. I sat down, pulling up the first set of files. Within minutes, I could see the problems. No consistent filing system, duplicate entries, missing documentation. It would take weeks to sort through it all, but I could already see the bones of a better structure. I can fix this, I said, fingers already moving across the keyboard. But I'll need access to physical records too, delivery confirmations, timesheets. Osman will get you whatever you need. Luca moved to stand behind me, looking over my shoulder at the screen. Take your time. Do it right. I worked through the afternoon, losing myself in the familiar comfort of numbers and systems. Luca came and went, bringing coffee, answering questions about his operations, watching me work with an intensity that made my skin tingle. By the time Aylin called us for dinner, I'd outlined a complete reorganization plan. You're gifted at this, Luca observed over the meal. Helena was a fool not to see it. Helena saw what she wanted to see, a vulnerable woman she could use and discard. I met his gaze steadily. But I'm not that woman anymore, thanks to you. No. He shook his head. You were never that woman, Aurora. Circumstances made you vulnerable, but they didn't define you. You're a survivor. I just gave you room to remember that. After dinner, we moved to the library, a smaller, cozier room than his study, with deep chairs and shelves packed with well-worn books. Luca poured brandy for himself and warm cider for me, and we talked as snow began to fall again beyond the windows. Tell me about your grandmother, he said. She raised you? From the time I was 8. My parents died in a car accident. I wrapped my hands around the warm mug. She was everything. Mother, father, friend, teacher. She taught me to be strong, to survive, to never accept less than I deserved. My voice caught. I think I've disappointed her these past months. Why? Because you did what you had to do to survive? He leaned forward, his gaze intense. Aurora, strength isn't never falling down. It's getting back up every time you do. You've been knocked down repeatedly, and every time you've stood again. That's the definition of courage. Or stupidity, I said, trying for lightness. Sometimes I can't tell the difference. There is no difference. They're the same thing viewed from different angles. He sipped his brandy. The brave and the foolish both step forward when everyone else steps back. The only distinction is whether they succeed. And if I fail? If I can't organize your restaurants? Or if Helena comes after me again? Or if... You won't fail at the work. I've already seen enough to know that. He set down his glass, his attention fully on me. As for Helena, she'll never touch you again. I've made certain of that. How? Let's just say that Helena Ashford has been informed that you are under my protection, and she understands what that means. The casual way he said it, the absolute certainty, sent a shiver through me. This was the dangerous side of Luca Marchetti, the man who could make threats that people believed, who commanded enough fear that even someone as entitled as Helena would back down. You frighten her, I said. It wasn't a question. I frighten many people. It's useful. He tilted his head, studying me. Does it frighten you? I considered the question honestly. It should, but no. Because I've seen the other side of you. The man who stops for a stranger in a storm, who cares for his staff, who grieves his sister, and channels that grief into protecting others. I met his eyes. You're dangerous, Luca. I'm not naive enough to deny that. But I don't think you're dangerous to me. No, he agreed softly. Never to you. The air between us suddenly felt charged, heavy with something unspoken. I should have looked away, should have broken the moment with a joke or a change of subject. But I couldn't move, caught in his gaze like a moth drawn to flame. Aurora. My name on his lips was almost reverent. I need you to understand something, what I feel for you. He stopped, seeming to struggle with the words. This isn't gratitude or responsibility. You interest me in a way no one has in years. Your courage, your intelligence, the way you refuse to be broken by circumstances that would destroy most people. He stood, moving to the window. But I won't act on that interest. Not while you're healing. Not while you're dependent on me for employment and shelter. That wouldn't be fair to you. My heart hammered against my ribs. And when I'm not dependent? When I'm working and established? He looked back at me, something fierce burning in his eyes. Then we'll see where this leads, if you want to explore it. A pause. I would very much like to explore it, Aurora, but on terms that give you real choice, real power. Not as a rescued waif grateful for scraps, but as an equal. I'm not your equal, I said, reality forcing the words out. You're wealthy, powerful, connected. I'm nobody, a former maid with community college credits and frostbitten fingers. You're wrong. He crossed back to me, kneeling so we were eye level. You have something most people in my world lack. Genuine integrity. You see clearly, judge fairly, refuse to be corrupted by circumstance. That's worth more than money or connections. His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing my jaw. Don't diminish yourself, Aurora. You're magnificent exactly as you are. The touch was electric, sending heat through my entire body. I leaned into it without thinking, drawn to him in a way that went beyond gratitude or obligation. This was attraction, pure and complicated, dangerous and thrilling. Luca, I whispered, not knowing what I was asking for. Not yet. He pulled back, standing with visible effort. When we do this, and we will, it will be because you're certain, because you want me, not because you feel you owe me. He moved toward the door. Get some rest, Aurora. Tomorrow you start your real work. After he left, I sat in the library for a long time, my cheek still warm from his touch. Everything in my life had changed in the span of a week. I'd gone from Helena's cruelty to Luca's protection, from certain death to unexpected opportunity. And now, impossibly, there was this attraction that hummed between us like a live wire, promising complications I couldn't yet imagine. I should have been wary. Should have been planning my exit strategy, maintaining emotional distance. But as I climbed the stairs to the Rose Room, all I could think about was the way Luca had looked at me, like I was precious, powerful, worth protecting and pursuing. For the first time in months, I felt hope unfurl in my chest. Not just for survival, but for something more. A future that might include purpose, prosperity, and perhaps even this strange, intense connection with a man who saw me as I wanted to be seen. I fell asleep that night with his words echoing in my mind. You're magnificent exactly as you are. And for the first time since my grandmother died, I allowed myself to believe it might be true. The new year arrived with clear, cold days that turned the world into crystal. I threw myself into work with an intensity that surprised even me, spending long hours at the small office Luca had set up, unraveling the chaos of his restaurant operations. Each day brought new discoveries, inefficiencies that cost thousands, vendors who overcharged, managers who skimmed from the top. I documented everything meticulously, creating reports that Luca reviewed each evening over dinner. We'd fallen into a routine, working separately during the day, coming together in the evenings to discuss business, then lingering in the library talking about everything else. Books, music, philosophy, dreams. He told me about growing up in his father's shadow, about the weight of inherited responsibility. I told him about my grandmother's wisdom, about the small joys that had sustained me through hard times. We never touched beyond casual contact. His hand on my shoulder as he leaned over to see my screen, my fingers brushing his as we passed documents. But the tension between us grew with each passing day, a taut wire that hummed with possibility. 3 weeks into January, I presented him with my final restructuring plan. We sat in his study, snow falling gently beyond the windows, as he read through the comprehensive document I'd prepared. "This is excellent work," he said finally, looking up at me with something like wonder. "You've identified problems I didn't even know existed." That's the benefit of fresh eyes. I dressed carefully for this presentation. A gray wool skirt and burgundy silk blouse that Luca had delivered with my other clothes. Professional, but attractive. Armor that made me feel competent. If you implement these changes, you'll save approximately $40,000 a month. More if we renegotiate your supplier contracts. When, he corrected, when we implement them. You're not handing this off, Aurora. You've earned a permanent position. He named a salary that made my eyes widen. Plus benefits, including proper housing once you're ready to live independently. That's more than fair. It's what you're worth. He set the report aside. Starting Monday, you'll be director of operations for Marchetti Restaurants. You'll have an office, a staff, and complete authority to make the changes you've outlined. I stared at him, overwhelmed. 6 weeks ago, I'd been sleeping in the snow. Now I was being offered a career, independence, a real future. "Thank you," I managed. "I won't let you down." "I know you won't." He stood, moving to the window. "There's something else we need to discuss. Helena Ashford." My stomach tightened. "What about her?" "My investigation has progressed faster than I expected. I now have documentation of her money laundering operation, testimony from 2 of the women she framed, and evidence linking her to several of her powerful friends' financial crimes." He turned to face me. "In 3 weeks, federal agents will execute a search warrant on her estate. She'll be arrested, charged, and, if justice works as it should, convicted. 3 weeks. The timeline felt both too fast and too slow. I wanted you to know so you'd be prepared. The investigation will be public, and your name will likely come up as one of her former employees. His expression softened. It won't touch you. I've ensured your record is clear. But there may be media attention, questions. I can handle questions. I met his gaze. What I want to know is if this puts you at risk. If helping me, investigating Helena, makes you vulnerable to... I gestured vaguely, unsure how to reference the darker aspects of his world. Helena Ashford is small time compared to the real players in this city. Taking her down makes me look righteous, like a legitimate businessman helping law enforcement. A slight smile. It's good for my reputation, actually. Shows I'm willing to expose corruption even in my own social circle. So this helps you. It helps both of us, and it ensures Helena never hurts anyone else. He moved closer. But I won't lie. There's satisfaction in this. She tried to kill you, Aurora. Left you to freeze because you were inconvenient. That's not something I can forgive. The possessive edge in his voice sent heat through me. Is that why you're doing this? For me? I'm doing this because it's right. Because Helena Ashford represents everything wrong with how power operates in this city. He stopped just short of touching me. But yes, there's a personal element. You matter to me, Aurora. Your safety, your justice, your future, all of it matters more than it probably should. Why shouldn't it matter? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Why is caring wrong? Because I'm not a good man. The admission came out rough, honest. I've done things you don't know about, things I can't undo. I've hurt people, ruined lives, made choices that haunt me. His hand lifted, hovering near my face. You deserve better than someone like me. I caught his hand, pressed it to my cheek. Maybe I get to decide what I deserve. Maybe I'm tired of other people making that choice for me. Aurora. You said we'd revisit this when I wasn't dependent on you, when I had real choice and power. I held his gaze. I start my new job Monday. I'll have my own income, my own authority. By your own criteria, I'm now an equal. You're 22, he said, but his hand curved around my face, thumb stroking my cheekbone. I'm 34. I have baggage you can't imagine. I don't care about your age, and everyone has baggage. Mine includes parents who died, a grandmother I watched waste away, months of being treated like nothing by people like Helena. I turned my face into his palm. What matters is that you see me, Luca. Really see me. Not as a charity case or a responsibility, but as someone capable and strong and worthy. I've always seen you that way. His other hand came up, framing my face. From the moment you looked at me in that car with defiance in your eyes despite being half frozen. You've never been weak, Aurora. Never. Then stop treating me like I'll break. I rose from my chair, closing the distance between us. I'm not afraid of you, Luca Marchetti. Not of your power, not of your past, not of whatever darkness you think should keep us apart. His control wavered. I saw it in the tightening of his jaw, the way his eyes darkened. You should be afraid. I'm possessive, Aurora. When I care about something, I protect it fiercely, sometimes too fiercely. Good. The word came out breathless. Because I'm tired of being unprotected. Tired of facing the world alone. You won't be alone anymore. It was a vow, absolute. If we do this, if we cross this line, I won't let you go. You understand that? Once you're mine, you're mine. Promise? I challenged, surprised by my own boldness. Something broke in his expression, the careful control he'd maintained for weeks finally shattering. His mouth found mine with fierce intensity, possessive and claiming and somehow still gentle. I melted into him, hands fisting in his sweater, pulling him closer as heat exploded through me. The kiss was everything. Weeks of tension finally released, attraction acknowledged, the careful dance ending in surrender. His arms wrapped around me, one hand tangling in my hair, the other at my waist holding me against him. I'd been kissed before, but never like this. Never with this intensity that made my knees weak and my heart race. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, he rested his forehead against mine. Aurora, are you certain? Because once we start this, there's no going back. I've never been more certain of anything. I kissed him again, shorter, but just as intense. I want this. Want you. All of you. Darkness and light. His arms tightened around me. Then you have me. All of me. For as long as you'll keep me. We stayed like that for a long moment, wrapped in each other, the fire crackling nearby and snow falling beyond the windows. Everything had changed in the span of minutes. The careful professional relationship transformed into something far more complicated and thrilling. We should talk about boundaries, Luca said eventually, pulling back enough to see my face. About what you're comfortable with, what you need. Right now, I need you to kiss me again. He smiled, a real smile, unguarded and warm. That I can do. This time the kiss was slower, exploratory, his tongue teasing at the seam of my lips until I opened for him. Heat built between us, desire that had been carefully banked for weeks now given permission to burn. His hands moved over me, respectful but possessive, learning the shape of me through my clothes. When his phone buzzed, he ignored it. The second time he pulled back with a muttered curse. I'm sorry. This might be important. He checked the screen, and his expression hardened. It's about Helena. I need to take this. Go. I smoothed his hair where my fingers had messed it. We have time. All the time you need, he promised, pressing one more quick kiss to my lips before stepping away to answer. I sank back into my chair, my lips tingling, and my heart still racing. Everything felt different now. The air sweeter, the future brighter. I'd crossed a line with Luca Marchetti, and there was no going back. More importantly, I didn't want to. He returned minutes later, his expression grim. That was my contact in the federal prosecutor's office. They're moving up the timeline. Helena's been tipped off about the investigation. She's planning to leave the country at the end of the week. So what happens now? They execute the warrant tomorrow. Get everything they need before she can destroy evidence or flee. He ran a hand through his hair, which means this will be very public, very quickly. Will I need to testify? Possibly. Are you prepared for that? I thought about Helena's cruelty, about the other women she'd hurt, about the justice that had been denied for so long. Yes, I'll tell them everything. Pride flickered in his eyes. That's my brave Aurora. The possessive phrasing made my stomach flutter. His Aurora. The idea should have felt confining, but instead it felt like safety, like belonging. What do we do until tomorrow? I asked. We enjoy tonight. He pulled me back into his arms. Because tomorrow, things get complicated. We spent the evening wrapped in each other, talking and kissing and learning the shape of this new thing between us. He told me more about his sister, about the guilt he still carried for not protecting her. I told him about my fears, about the nightmares where I was still in the snow, still freezing, no rescue coming. You're safe now, he murmured against my hair. I'll never let you be cold again. Never let you be unprotected or undervalued or anything less than cherished. That's a big promise. I don't make promises I can't keep. He tilted my face up. You're mine now, Aurora. That means something. It means everything. Later, when he walked me to my room, he kissed me goodnight with controlled passion, clearly holding himself back. "I want to do this right," he explained. "No rushing, no pressure. You set the pace." "What if my pace is faster than you think?" I asked, boldness fueled by the heat between us. He groaned. "Then you'll test my self-control in ways I haven't experienced in years." Another kiss, deeper. "But I'll wait, because you're worth waiting for." I fell asleep that night with my fingers pressed to my lips, still feeling the ghost of his kisses. Tomorrow would bring complications. Helena's arrest, media attention, questions about my relationship with Luca. But tonight, I let myself simply feel. Happy, desired, protected. For the first time since my grandmother died, I felt like I'd found home. Not a place, but a person. Someone who saw all of me and wanted me anyway. Darkness and light, strength and vulnerability. All of it. Luca Marchetti had saved my life. And now, impossibly, he was offering me his heart. Morning came with unexpected warmth. Luca's arms around me, his heartbeat steady beneath my cheek. I'd fallen asleep in his embrace on the library sofa, and neither of us had moved to separate. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating dust motes that danced in the golden light. "Good morning," he murmured, his voice rough with sleep. "How did you rest?" "Better than I have in months." I tilted my face up to find him watching me with an expression so tender it made my breath catch. "You stayed." "Where else would I be?" His fingers traced patterns on my back. "Though we should probably move before my staff starts gossiping." "Too late for that." Aylin's amused voice came from the doorway. "Everyone already knows you two finally stopped pretending you didn't want each other." Luca groaned. "Privacy in this house is a myth." "You're the one who fell asleep in the library," she pointed out. "Breakfast is ready when you are. And Mr. Marchetti, your lawyer, called. He'll be here at 9. After she left, I pulled back reluctantly. I should go change. Get ready for whatever today brings. Aurora. He caught my hand. "About yesterday. About us. No regrets," I said firmly. "Not from me." Relief washed over his features. "Good, because I have none either." He stood, pulling me up with him. "But we need to be careful today. When the news breaks about Helena, there will be questions about my involvement, about you. We need to present a united front. Which means we're honest but vague. Yes, I helped you after Helena threw you out. Yes, you now work for me. But we don't discuss the investigation, and we certainly don't discuss anything personal." His thumb stroked over my knuckles. "Our relationship is no one's business but ours." I nodded, understanding. In Luca's world, privacy was protection. The less people knew, the safer we both were. The morning passed in a blur of preparation. Luca's lawyer arrived with briefing documents about what to expect. Osman increased security around the property. I changed into professional clothes, a navy suit that made me look older, more authoritative, and rehearsed potential questions with Luca. At precisely 11 a.m., the news broke. Federal agents had raided Helena Ashford's estate at dawn, arresting her on charges of money laundering, fraud, and conspiracy. The story dominated local news, complete with helicopter footage of Helena being led out in handcuffs, her perfect hair disheveled and her face twisted with rage. "She looks furious," I observed, watching the footage in Luca's study. "She's ruined. Everything she built, destroyed." He stood behind me, hands on my shoulders. "How do you feel?" Relieved, vindicated. I leaned back against him, but also sad. She had so much: wealth, position, opportunities, and she used it all for cruelty. That's the difference between you and her. You understand that power comes with responsibility. He pressed a kiss to my hair. She never did. By afternoon, reporters had connected my name to the story. Former employee Aurora Winters had provided information leading to the investigation. I found myself fielding calls from journalists asking about my time working for Helena, about the abuse, about my current employment with Luca Marchetti. No comment became my refrain, repeated until the words felt meaningless. The story shifted by evening. Questions arose about Luca's involvement. How had he known about Helena's crimes? What was his relationship to me? Were there romantic connections that compromised the investigation? Let them speculate, Luca said calmly, as we watched yet another news segment questioning his motives. Speculation isn't proof. It bothers you, I observed, that they're questioning your integrity. What bothers me is that they're dragging you into it, making you answer for crimes you had no part in. His jaw tightened. But it will pass. Tomorrow there will be some new scandal, and will be yesterday's news. He was right. By the end of the week, the media had moved on to other stories. Helena remained in custody, denied bail due to flight risk. The investigation had uncovered evidence of crimes spanning years, involving dozens of victims. 2 of Helena's powerful friends had also been arrested, their connections to her money laundering scheme exposed. "It's over," I said one evening as we sat together in the library, the place that had become our refuge. "This chapter is..." Luca pulled me closer. "But there are others ahead. Such as you starting your new position Monday. Such as finding you a proper apartment. Something secure and comfortable. Such as figuring out what this is between us." He gestured between our entwined bodies. "What do you want it to be?" He was quiet for a long moment. "Honest, I want everything. I want you in my home, in my bed, in my life. I want to wake up with you every morning and fall asleep with you every night. I want the world to know you're mine." He cupped my face. "But I also want you to have independence, freedom, choices. So we'll take it slowly. Let you establish yourself first." What if I don't want slowly? The question emerged before I could think better of it. What if I want what you want? Everything now. Heat flared in his eyes. "Aurora, you're 22. You should date, experience life, not tie yourself to a man 12 years older with complicated baggage. I'm also smart enough to know what I want." I straddled his lap, feeling his sharp intake of breath. "I want you, Luca. Not slowly, not carefully. I want everything you're willing to give me." His hand settled on my waist, gripping firmly. "You have no idea what you're asking for." "Then show me." The kiss was explosive, all the restraint he'd been maintaining finally breaking. His hands moved over me with possessive certainty, learning every curve, every sensitive spot. I matched his intensity, fingers tangling in his hair, pulling him closer even when there was no space left between us. "Aurora," he groaned against my neck. "We should stop." "Do you want to stop?" "God, no. But you deserve better than being rushed. I deserve to make my own choices." I pulled back enough to meet his eyes. "And I choose you. Now. Tonight. Unless you don't want." He silenced me with another kiss, deep and claiming. "I want. I've wanted since the moment I found you in the snow. So fierce and vulnerable and refusing to give up." His forehead pressed to mine. "But once we do this, there's no going back. You understand that? I'm not a casual man, Aurora. When I take you to my bed, it means something. It means mine." "Prove it," I challenged. With a muttered oath, he stood, lifting me with him. I wrapped my legs around his waist as he carried me from the library, up the grand staircase, down the hall to his private quarters. The master suite was elegant and masculine, all dark wood and rich fabrics, with a massive bed dominating the space. He set me down gently, his hands going to the buttons of my blouse. Tell me if you want to stop, at any point, for any reason. I won't. I reached for his shirt, fumbling with buttons until he took over, stripping it off with efficient grace. What followed was both tender and fierce, Luca taking his time despite the urgency between us, learning every inch of me, showing me pleasure I'd never imagined. He was patient and demanding by turns, his control absolute even as passion threatened to overwhelm us both. When we finally came together, his eyes never left mine. Mine, he breathed against my lips. Say it. Yours, I gasped as pleasure built. I'm yours. The words seemed to break something in him. His control shattered, replaced by raw need that matched my own. We moved together, two people finding completion in each other. The world narrowing to just this. His body, my pleasure, the connection that felt like coming home. Afterward, we lay tangled together, sweat-slicked and satisfied. He traced lazy patterns on my bare shoulder, his breathing gradually slowing. No regrets? He asked quietly. None. I kissed his chest. You? Never. He pulled me closer. You're mine now, Aurora, in every way that matters, and I take care of what's mine. I'm not a possession. No, you're more than that. You're my partner, my equal, my... He stopped, seeming to struggle with the word. You're what? My everything. The admission came out rough, vulnerable. I didn't expect you. Didn't expect to feel this way. But you've changed everything, Aurora Winters. You've made me want things I thought I'd never have again. Like what? Like a future? Like family? Like waking up happy instead of just functional? He tilted my face up. Like love. My breath caught. Luca, I love you. He said it simply, directly. I know it's fast. I know we should take more time, but I've never been good at denying truth. I love you, Aurora. Your courage, your integrity, the way you face the world with your chin up even when everything seems against you. His thumb brushed my cheek. I love all of it, all of you. Tears burned my eyes. I love you too. I think I have since you carried me out of that storm. But I was afraid to admit it. Afraid you'd think it was just gratitude or... He kissed me silent. It was never just gratitude. You looked at me like you saw through all my carefully constructed walls straight to the man beneath. Like you weren't afraid of what you found there. I'm not. I've never been afraid of you. You should be. But his smile softened the words. I'm possessive, Aurora. Jealous. When you're mine completely. I won't share you. Won't tolerate anyone trying to come between us. Good. Because I feel the same way. I kissed him again. You're mine, Luca Marchetti, and I don't share either. He laughed, the sound free and genuine. Then we're perfectly matched. We spent the rest of the night learning each other, talking and touching and making promises in the dark. By morning, everything had changed. We weren't just Aurora and Luca anymore. We were us, a unit, bound together by something stronger than circumstances or convenience. The world outside would continue spinning. Helena would face trial. My new job would start. Life would bring challenges and complications. But we would face it all together. Two people who'd found each other in a snowstorm and refused to let go. As dawn light filled the room, I watched Luca sleep. His face relaxed in a way I'd never seen. This complicated, dangerous, utterly devoted man who'd saved my life and then claimed my heart. My grandmother used to say that sometimes the best things come when you're not looking for them, when you're simply trying to survive. She'd been right. I'd been trying to survive a blizzard. Instead, I'd found everything I never knew I needed. The seasons turned, winter melting into spring, spring warming into summer. My first weeks as director of operations were challenging. proving myself to skeptical restaurant managers, implementing changes against resistance, learning to command respect in rooms full of people who'd been in the industry longer than I'd been alive. But I had Luca's support and my own competence, and gradually, the resistance faded. The restaurants became more efficient, more profitable, the staff more satisfied. I was good at this work, and it showed. Luca and I navigated the delicate balance of being together while working together. He never interfered with my authority, never undermined my decisions in front of staff. In meetings, we were consummate professionals. In private, we were insatiable, making up for years of loneliness with fierce devotion to each other. I moved into a beautiful apartment in June. Luca's building, but my own space, my own lease. Independence that was real, even if we spent most nights together anyway. The apartment became mine, in ways the Rose Room never had. Filled with books I chose, furniture I selected, artwork that spoke to me. Luca helped me move in, then made love to me in every room, christening the space as ours even though only my name was on the lease. "You're sure about this?" he asked as we lay tangled in my new bed, moonlight streaming through uncurtained windows. "You could just move into the mansion. Save yourself the rent." "I need this," I said honestly. "Need to prove I can stand on my own, even though I'm with you." He understood. He always understood. "Then keep it as long as you need. But know that my home is your home, Aurora. Whenever you want it." By autumn, Helena's trial had concluded. Guilty on all counts, sentenced to 15 years in federal prison. I'd testified, facing her across the courtroom and refusing to look away as I described her cruelty. She'd stared at me with such hatred I'd felt it like a physical force. But Luca had been there, solid and supportive, and I'd spoken my truth clearly. 2 of her powerful friends had taken plea deals, their own crimes revealed. The scandal had rocked the city's elite, exposing corruption that ran deeper than anyone had suspected. Luca emerged unscathed, the whistleblower who'd helped expose it all, the legitimate businessman working with law enforcement. "Justice," I said, the night after sentencing, curled against Luca's side. It actually worked. Sometimes it does, when enough pressure is applied to the right places. He kissed my hair. "You were brave today, facing her like that." I wasn't alone. I'll never be alone again. As fall deepened, Luca began working on a new project, converting Helena's seized estate into a shelter for vulnerable women. The mansion where I'd been so cruelly treated would become a sanctuary, offering housing, job training, counseling. When he asked me to be the director, I said yes without hesitation. This was purpose beyond profit, justice beyond revenge. We spent months planning the renovation, consulting with social workers and survivors, designing programs that would truly help. The grand opening was scheduled for Christmas Eve, exactly 3 years after the night Luca had found me in the snow. The day arrived with crystalline weather, cold but clear. The shelter gleamed with warm lights, the formerly cold mansion transformed into something welcoming. We gave tours to local officials and donors, showed off the comfortable rooms and common spaces, explained our programming. Throughout it all, Luca stayed close, his hand at my back, his pride in me evident to everyone watching. As evening fell and the last visitors departed, we stood alone in the entrance hall. Garland draped the banisters. A massive tree sparkled in the corner, everything decorated for the holiday by staff who would arrive tomorrow to begin serving the first residents. "It's perfect," I breathed, taking in the transformation. She would hate knowing her home became this. "Good." Luca's arm circled my waist. "The best revenge is watching cruelty become kindness. I can't believe it's been 3 years." I leaned into his warmth. 3 years since you saved my life. You saved mine too, just in a different way. He turned me to face him, his expression serious. Aurora, there's something I need to ask you. Something I've been planning for months. My heart kicked against my ribs. Luca, let me say this. He took my hands, his thumbs stroking over my knuckles. 3 years ago, I found a woman freezing in the snow. She looked at me without fear, with dignity and strength despite everything working against her. I thought I was rescuing her, but really, she was rescuing me. From loneliness, from letting my sister's death define me forever, from believing I didn't deserve happiness. Luca, I whispered, tears already forming. You've made me better, Aurora. Made me want to be better. You've taken my darkness and found light in it, taken my protection and transformed it into something healthier. You're the most magnificent woman I've ever known, strong and kind and brilliant. His voice roughened with emotion. And I can't imagine my future without you in it. Don't want to imagine it. He released my hands and lowered himself to one knee, pulling a small velvet box from his pocket. My breath caught as he opened it, revealing a ring that sparkled with understated elegance. A sapphire surrounded by diamonds, the blue the exact shade of winter twilight. Aurora Winters, he said, his voice steady despite the emotion in his eyes. Will you marry me? Will you let me love you, protect you, stand beside you for the rest of our lives? Will you make me the luckiest man alive and agree to be my wife? Joy burst through me like sunrise. Yes. I pulled him up, kissing him with everything I felt. Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes. He slid the ring onto my finger with trembling hands, the first time I'd seen him nervous about anything. It fit perfectly, catching the light and throwing blue fire. I love you, I breathed against his lips. I love you so much. I love you more than I thought possible to love anyone. He lifted me, spinning us both as I laughed. You're mine, Aurora. Finally, officially, completely mine. And you're mine. I cupped his face between my hands. My savior, my partner, my love. We stood together in the transformed mansion, wrapped in each other as snow began to fall outside. 3 years ago, I'd been dying in a storm. Tonight, I was engaged to the man who'd saved me, standing in a place that would save countless others, with a future bright with possibility stretching before us. When should we marry? Luca asked, his arms tight around me. Soon. I kissed him again. I don't want to wait. We've already waited 3 years. Spring then. April, when everything's blooming and new. He smiled against my lips. Or we could go to the courthouse tomorrow. I laughed. Your mother would never forgive us if we didn't give her a wedding to plan. True. He pulled back slightly. But I meant what I said. I don't want to wait long. I want you bound to me legally, permanently. Want the whole world to know you're mine. Possessive as always. Always. No apology in his voice. You knew what you were getting when you agreed to be mine. I did, and I wouldn't change a thing. We left the shelter as snow fell harder, coating the world in fresh white. Luca drove us back to the mansion. Our mansion now, the one I'd finally agreed to move into last month, my apartment kept but rarely used. Home was wherever he was, and he was here. That night, we made love slowly, reverently, with the ring sparkling on my finger and promises whispered in the dark. 3 years of fear and healing, of trust built day by day, of love that had grown from rescue into something deeper and truer. I would have died that night, I said afterward, curled against his chest. Without you, I would have frozen in that snow. You would have survived somehow. You always do. His fingers traced patterns on my back. But I'm grateful I found you, grateful for every moment since. Even the hard ones, The media scrutiny, the questions, me being stubborn about independence. Especially those. They taught me that loving you means respecting your strength, not trying to contain it. He tilted my face up. You're not a bird I caught, Aurora. You're a partner who chose to stay. That's worth more than anything. I'll always choose you. I kissed over his heart. Every day, every moment, every challenge we face, I choose you. And I choose you. He pressed his lips to my hair. My brave Aurora who refused to freeze, who fought her way back to warmth and built something beautiful from the ashes of her old life. We fell asleep like that, wrapped together, the ring on my finger catching moonlight. Outside, snow continued to fall, but we were warm, safe, together. The storm had passed years ago, but it had brought us to each other. And now, finally, we were writing the ending we both wanted. Not rescue, but partnership. Not salvation, but choice. Not possession, but love freely given and freely received. In April, I would walk down an aisle toward him. In all the years after, we would wake together, work together, build lives that mattered. We would fight and reconcile, laugh and cry, face whatever came with united strength. But tonight, on the 3rd anniversary of the night that changed everything, we simply held each other and gave thanks. For second chances. For love that came from darkness. For the beautiful truth that sometimes the worst night of your life is also the beginning of the best thing that ever happened to you. I'd been found in the snow by a man who saw my worth when I couldn't. He'd given me safety, opportunity, love. And I'd given him peace, purpose, a reason to believe in goodness again. We'd saved each other in all the ways that mattered. And now, with his ring on my finger and his heartbeat steady beneath my cheek, I finally understood what home truly meant. Not a place, not even a person exactly. But this. 2 souls who'd found each other in a storm and decided to face every future storm together. Sleep, my love, Luca murmured, his arms tightening protectively. Tomorrow we start planning our wedding. Tomorrow and always, I agreed, letting my eyes close. Together. The last thing I remembered before sleep claimed me was his voice, soft as snowfall. Together, I promise. And I knew, with absolute certainty, that he would keep that promise, just as I would keep mine. Through whatever came, in darkness and light, in storm and calm, we would face it together. The girl who'd nearly frozen to death on Christmas Eve had found her forever warmth, and the man who'd saved her had found his redemption. Sometimes, the most beautiful stories begin in the coldest places. Ours had. And it would only get warmer from here. Love often finds us when we least expect it, in our darkest moments, when we're simply trying to survive. Aurora's story reminds us that true strength isn't about never falling, but about who we become when someone finally sees our worth and gives us the space to rise again. Sometimes the person who saves us also needs saving in return. And together we build something more beautiful than either could have imagined alone. If this story touched your heart, please click like below. It helps share Aurora and Luca's journey with others who might need to hear it. Now I'm curious. Have you ever experienced a moment when someone's unexpected kindness completely changed the direction of your life? Share your story in the comments. I'd love to hear how compassion transformed your path.